Hello, and welcome to the Get Lean and Eat Clean podcast. My name is Brian Grin. I'm a certified health coach, trainer, and author. And this podcast is for middle-aged men and women looking to optimize their health and get their bodies back to what it once was 10 to 15 years ago. I will give you simple, actionable items to get long-term sustainable results. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. All right, welcome to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. My name is Brian Grin. I hope you had a great weekend and happy Tuesday if you're listening to this on Tuesday. Hopefully you listened to my interview with Jared Rawski, a.k.a. the Health Goat. He's a holistic health practitioner and out of LA. And we touched on all about his brand guide to dominate the grocery store. We talked about just simplifying things and optimizing circadian rhythm and much, much more. So I've known Jared for a while. He's coming up. He's got some great courses and brand guides, and he does some cool reels on Instagram. So check it out. Those are all in the show notes. And yeah, worth a listen. Episode 278. And on today's micro podcast, I got this from Mike Mutzel. He did a review on this article, and I thought it would be beneficial to do it as well. And the title of the article, and I'm going to share my screen real quick. If you're watching on, YouTube, you can take a look here. It's called No Time to Lift. Here we go. No Time to Lift, Designing Time-Efficient Training Programs for Strength and Hypertrophy, a narrative review. And so I went through this article. I mean, it's long, but what I love about these reviews is the fact that it takes a bunch of different studies and then gives you sort of a conclusion as to what to take from them. And the reason I like these reviews is because, you could read one study that sort of has this one narrative and it can be completely different than something else. And like, as we've talked about in this podcast, you can go sort of crazy, and whatever narrative you really want to hear, you can find a study for. So I like these ones that sort of take a bunch of different studies and then give you a conclusion. So that's what I'm going to do with you, is I'm going to share sort of the high level conclusions based on this, because for one thing, what I like about this is it talks about, first of all, muscle is how important it is. We've always talked about that for metabolic health, for burning fat, improving resting energy expenditure, helping with aging and longevity. And so what this goes through is, for individuals who maybe don't have enough time to lift or to do resistance training, spend an hour or two in the gym, what is the most efficient way for them to get results and maintain it in the long term and stay consistent over time? Because I always say consistency is the most important thing. So let's just hit on the high level, sort of the practical applications for this time-efficient strength and hypertrophy program. Okay, first and foremost, how much and how heavy should you train? So the article stated that performing about 4 weekly sets per muscle group was enough. So 4 weekly sets, I mean, that could be done, that could be done in 1 day. That could be done on 2 days. I think 2 days, 2 sets, 2 days is more than reasonable. So they said at least 4 weekly sets per muscle group. So if you're, for chest, that would be 4 bench press. Excuse me, having trouble talking. 4 bench press sets, or 4 sets of squats for lower body. And it mentioned that you can increase the volume when possible up to 10 weekly sets. Okay, so there is some leeway in the sense that if you do enjoy and you have more time and you enjoy going to the gym, you can do up to 10 weekly sets. So let's just say between 4 and 10, depending on your time constraints. And then using 6 to 15 rep range for strength and hypertrophy. Okay, so 6 to 15, which, we've talked about here. Sometimes you'll hear 6 to 12, but I think that's a good rep range to go with. If you do lighter loads and you want to go hit the rep range and do 15 to 40, that's fine, but you got to just make sure that you're performing it close to failure. I mean, if you do 30 reps and you're not feeling much, then you probably got to go up and weight a little bit. So if you do lighter loads, you can do more reps, but you got to try to get close to failure. So secondly, what should you train? Well, you should perform lower body, at least one lower body, one pulling and one pushing for the upper body. And preferably these would be like multi-joint exercises, like a leg press, seated row, bench press. Okay, so you could do this all in one workout. You could do one lower body, one pulling, and one pushing. Machines could be, used, free weights based on your training goals, availability, and personal preference. I mean, if you're working out from your house, you're not going to have, I'm assuming you don't have too many machines in your house unless you got a big basement with a whole weight set in there. But free weights, also, like I've done and I've had used it over the years, is the X3 or some type of resistance band training. There's some good ones out there, and I like using the X3. And so that's another sort of option as well, and you can bring that when you travel. So like it talks about, you could do body weight training as well. So that's how much and how heavy you should train. That's what you should train. Okay, got to make sure you hit the lower body and the upper body. Personally, I like lower body better. Most people like upper body, but for me, that's just something I prefer. I do all of it, but I do prefer lower body. Time-saving strategy. So it talks about drop sets, rest pause training, and supersets. And the reason it brings this up is it can pretty much cut your training time down in like half compared to traditional training. So, and it can be beneficial for hypertrophy. So for example, a drop set. Okay. This is something that I use from time to time, not all the time. And you can create fatigue, create failure pretty quickly, and then be done. It's when you perform an exercise and then you sort of drop the weight, let's just say anywhere from 10 to 30%, and continue for more reps until you reach failure. So if you've ever seen someone doing like the bench press and, let's just say they got, 145 on there, they'll bring it down maybe from there to 115, then maybe 95, and then maybe 75, and then maybe just the bar at 45. So that would be a drop set. And it's, it's fatiguing, and you just go through it once and done. So that's an efficient way of doing things. There's something called rest pause training. And that's another way to be time efficient. It breaks down one set into numerous mini sets with 10 to 15 second rests in between. So this not only helps fatigue and it fatigues the muscle fiber, but also can help you break through, challenging strength and growth plateaus. So I don't really do this much rest pause training. This would be just one set and just trying to get probably as much out of that set as possible with small little rests. So if you did 135 bench and you did it, for 20, and then you rested a little bit, and you try to do as many then the next time, and then rest, and just one big set, but broken down into mini sets. That's rest pause training. And then the last one they mentioned to be time efficient, and this is something I do quite a bit, is supersets. You could do some type of a push-pull superset where you do a bench press followed by a row, shoulder press followed by, shoulder press followed by like, reverse flies, so you're doing opposing muscles and back to back, as opposed to doing bench, rest. You could do bench and then rows and then come back to bench. By the time you're done with the rows, you've had efficient rest period. So they're great for reducing workout time and can, obviously great for muscle growth. I love doing supersets and doing some type of push pull, or, if I'm doing legs, maybe I'll do more backside hamstring glute work, and then do some type of quad exercise and do those back to back. So supersets are great. Rest pause training, I don't do that as much. And then drop sets can be very efficient. So those are time-saving strategies, and give those a try as well. They talk about those. And then lastly, warm-up and stretching, overrated a bit. I would say do a warm-up based on what you're doing. So if you're doing bench press, just start with really light bench press. And that's all you need to do for a warm-up. You don't need to do some type of stretching, elaborate stretching warm-up. I just like to I would say do some type of movement, maybe get the blood flowing. But I would say that stretching is a bit overrated from that standpoint. I typically like to do some releases, which it's tough to talk about it right now, but you can release your glutes. You can, do some releases for your calves when you're doing lower body. Upper body, I like to just, release my chest, my rhomboids, things like that. But I would say do a specific warm-up based on whatever that exercise that you're going to be doing. So if you're doing squats, do light squats. If you're doing bench press, do light bench press, and then you could just get right into it. And so that's a good way to just save time. You don't need some elaborate warm-up session. So that's what I want to touch on today. I will leave a link in the show notes for this review. And it's just, I liked it because, designing a time-efficient training program for strength and hypertrophy is, I think, ideal. I think everyone should be doing it. So that's all what I want to touch on today. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, brian@briangrin.com. If you're loving the podcast, would love a review, and on iTunes or Spotify, wherever you're listening. And we're also on YouTube. So thanks so much for listening. Enjoy the day and the week. I'll talk to you on Friday with another great interview. Thanks for listening to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. I understand there are millions of other podcasts out there, and you've chosen to listen to mine, and I appreciate that. Check out the show notes at briangrin.com for everything that was mentioned in this episode. Feel free to subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend or family member that's looking to get their body back to what it once was. Thanks again, and have a great day.